it's Ashley, and today it is finally time, 2 weeks later, to do my August wrap-up. Actually, no, it's only been a week. We're like a week and 2 days. We're totally fine. So I read a grand total of 14 things in the month of August. Don't ask me how, because I'm not totally sure. But 14 books in total. That makes this the highest count month of the year. I don't know about pages. I should look at pages when I'm doing these wrap-ups. Maybe next month I'll put something together. Or maybe I'll do like a big year-end review or something and decide what my best months were. Anyways, I read 14 things, so let's get to them. I'm not doing these in any particular order because they've gotten out of order since they've been collecting on my shelf. So I read 5 different books for the year of Dahl. I read The Min Pins, Skin and Other Stories, Rhyme Stew, The Twits, and Charlie and the Great Glass Elevator. All of these I will talk about in my Year of Dahl check-in coming right after this video. If you saw my reading plans for the rest of the year video, you know that August was ARC August, which is something that was started by vloggers and it's starting to work its way into BookTube as well. So I was unofficially participating, trying to read as many arcs as I could. That ended up being a grand total of 4 arcs, so let me show you those. The first is 212 Degrees, The Extra Degree by Sam Parker and Mac Anderson. This is a tiny little book. There's like 90 pages or something in it. This is on sale now. It came out in August, I guess. This is a business book about putting in the extra effort to reach your goals. The premise is that at 211 degrees, water is just very hot, and at 212 degrees, water is boiling and then creates steam, which can then power locomotives, and essentially, if you put in that little bit of extra work, you can achieve way greater things than you would have thought. I enjoyed that premise of it. This book, really not so much. I think I gave it like 2 stars because really, it put forth this premise, and then it was a bunch of weird sports statistics about the difference between an Olympic gold medalist and an Olympic silver medalist, and then there was just a bunch of inspirational quotes and ideas of how to put forth extra effort. I just really didn't enjoy it. I didn't see why it had to be a whole book. In my Goodreads review, I believe I wrote, this would have been a great blog post or blog series, but as a book, I didn't really like it. How does this little tiny thing turn into an entire book? I don't understand. I did not enjoy it. I gave it 1 or 2 stars out of 5 only because I did enjoy that idea of that little bit of extra work is going to achieve really great results. But overall, you don't need the book to tell you that. I just told you the whole premise. Next, I read The Problem with Forever by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I loved this book. I believe I gave it 4 out of 5 stars because I did have some small issues, but overall, I just liked it. I really, really enjoyed it. This book is out now. It came out in July, I believe. Oh, just kidding. It came out in May. So it's been out for a while, but I didn't get to it till now, and it is an ARC copy, so it counted for ARC August. The premise of this book is that a girl named Mallory grew up in the foster care system, and it was a really horrendous time, and she grew up with a boy named Ryder, who was only 6 months older than her, but was kind of her protector, looked out for her, kept her from the worst of the beatings and abuse that they suffered in their home. 4 years ago, something absolutely horrendous happened that led to both of them being removed from the home. Mallory ended up getting adopted by a wonderful family, while Ryder was still in the system, however, in slightly better environments than what he was before. Mallory, because of all of the abuse and everything that happened in her past, she is effectively mute. She has a very hard time speaking to anybody because that was always what got her in trouble. So she's worked through a lot of her issues. She now is able to talk to her adoptive parents fairly easily, and she has decided that she wants to go to public school for her senior year of high school, which is a huge step for her. On her first day there, who does she run into but Ryder, and relationship ensues because it's Jennifer L. Armentrout. I really enjoyed this book. I loved seeing Mallory come out of herself and learn how to live in this world and learn that she is valued and has a voice that she can use at her own will. I really, really enjoyed that side of things. However, I felt like when she and Ryder met up again, that they fell back into their old habits way too easily, and I can understand, like, they'd been through a lot of horrific things together, so that would kind of be the expected way to go, but Ryder's words weren't matching up with his actions. He kept trying to encourage her and was impressed with how far she had come and all of that, but his actions were really putting her down to the point, like, they were in class one day, class ended, and he stood up and took all of the things off her desk and put them in her backpack for her. Very much treating her like an invalid, like a child, like somebody who couldn't do for herself, even though he kept trying to tell her that she could do all those things. So I didn't really enjoy that aspect of things. I can see where it was coming from, but it went on for far too long in my opinion. But all in all, loved this book. 4 out of 5 stars. Made me cry. I would have stayed up until 4 a.m. reading it, except I had to work at 7, so I read it in 2 sittings instead of just 1, but absolutely fantastic. Jennifer L. Armentrout just has such a way with words, and it's so beautiful. The next arc I read is Tetris by Box Brown. This is a graphic novel about how Tetris, the game we all know and love and just has kind of always been there, came into existence. And it involves so much more than I thought. It tells the story not only of Tetris, but also of Nintendo and Atari and Sony and all of these other gaming mega giants. Is that a word? I'm gonna go with it. And how they all intertwined and came together. And I just really, really enjoyed this. I think I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. It was really interesting to me. I am not a huge gamer, but I still really enjoyed it. The drawings were really nice. It's just black and white, very simple, but I don't know what it is about it. I just really, truly enjoyed hearing the story of how gaming as we know it came to be. And I mean, it literally starts with cavemen and goes all the way up to now we have gaming systems on our phones. So it's really cool. If you're into gaming, I would definitely check this out. Even if you're not super into gaming and you just have like an interest, I think you might enjoy this. I really did. So again, 5 out of 5 stars. And the final arc that I read, not the final book, but the final arc is Isaac the Alchemist by Mary Lousseur. Supposed to be a children's book about Isaac Newton and his relationship with alchemy, which was really considered kind of magic in his days. I didn't know that it was a children's book going into it, and it doesn't always read like a children's book. There are times that it reads very, very juvenile, but then other times where it doesn't. It was very strange in that way. It wasn't fully children's, it wasn't fully adult, and it wasn't really YA. It was just its own thing. I also found it to be very repetitive. She kept going back to his list of sins that he would write in his notebook, which I think is an interesting fact about his life, and it's one of the few personal things that we know about Isaac Newton, but it was literally repeated like every other chapter. That was just way too much. There was also this weird dichotomy between alchemy as science and alchemy as magic. It was like she couldn't make up her mind if it was science or if it was magic, and kept just mixing the two together. It did finally come together in that she said, well, maybe Isaac Newton wasn't the first scientist of his kind. Maybe he was the last magician, which I think was a cool idea, but it was just kind of confusing. I didn't really enjoy it. I think I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. There was some good information, but overall, I think it would be too boring for kids, and it was too boring for me as an adult. And for the little bit of information that I did get out of it, I don't think it was worth it to me to read the whole book. If I wasn't in the middle of a readathon when I read this, probably wouldn't have finished it. That being said, I did give it a little bit of stars because I did learn some things, and I did find it interesting to read about Isaac Newton, because other than the fact he's a great scientist, I really didn't know much about him. So getting to know a little bit of his history and his personal life was interesting to me. I just said interesting a billion times. Now we get into the random books. First, we have The Art of Nonconformity by Chris Guillebeau. I loved this book. It gets 5 out of 5 stars. The tagline on this book is set your own rules, live the life you want, and change the world. It's basically just about creating a life that you love and going after all of your dreams, no matter what people say or no matter what is hindering you along the way. Chris Guillebeau is a man who decided he wanted to go to every country in the world, and so he created a job that he could do off of his laptop and set off going to every single country in the world. He had a set number of years, I don't remember what it was, and he did it. He's a very encouraging man. He has a website, The Art of Nonconformity, hence the title. He also is known for the World Domination Summit that takes place in Portland every year, which one day I will go to. But really, this book and his blog and his message is really not sitting back and letting life happen to you, but going after the life you want so that you have no regrets at the end. And I absolutely love this book. I cannot recommend it highly enough. Definitely check this out. I had read his other book, The Happiness of Pursuit, a year or two ago, and that was also phenomenal. So I think this book and that book together are like a perfect duology. I don't think they're meant to be together, but they go together really well. So I highly recommend that you check these out. Then there was a day that I was just feeling pretty emotional and I needed to reread a favorite book, but my absolute favorite book still hasn't been returned. So I went with Donovan's Daughter, which if you've been on this channel at all, you know that I read fairly frequently. I have not read it this year yet, according to my journal, and so I read it from front to back in a night, because that's what I do. I love this book. I've talked about it before, essentially. Donovan's daughter is named Mark Hale, and she accepts a teaching job in a small town back in the 1800s, somewhere like that, and she has a lot of trouble, and it leads to her being virtually forced into a marriage with the town doctor, who she is terrified of, not because he's a bad man or anything like that, but just because he's a doctor. She has an intense fear of doctors, and now she finds herself married to one. Even though he's very sweet, she has a hard time coming to terms with that, and it's just a lovely love story, and I love it so much. And so I read that again for like the billionth time. Next up, also as part of Bio-Rat, I read Beautiful Uncertainty by Mandy Hale. She's also known as the Single Woman online. I believe that's her blog. I've never actually checked out her blog, but the tagline on this is singleness, surrender, and stepping out on faith. I wanted to love this book. I really did. Unfortunately, I didn't. I think I gave it 3 out of 5 stars because it was good, and I can see why so many people are loving it. However, there were big chunks of the book that I just couldn't relate to, where she talks about the pain of coming out of long relationships and things. I don't have those experiences. experiences, so I couldn't relate to it. The book also just felt really scattered, like she couldn't make up her mind. It was just a bunch of really, really short chapters, which was a good thing because you could fly through it. The chapters are only like 6 pages long each, so that made it really easy, but you would go from a chapter on heartbreak to a chapter on grocery shopping to, like, it was just all over the place, and so that did not help me read this book. But she did have a lot of really cool things to say about faith and your relationship with God and growing that despite what your relationship status is, so I did enjoy those pieces of it. One of my biggest pet peeves, and this has nothing to do with the actual book, whoever formatted this book needs to up their game, because in those prayer sections, almost every single time, the fonts were different. And I don't just mean like the header and the actual prayer. No, I mean like within a sentence, the Y's would be different. There would be one Y that was rounded, and then there would be one Y that was pointed, and it would be like 5 words apart. And it would just drive me up a wall, and so I couldn't even focus on what the actual prayer was because I was too distracted from the font. It was horrible. And I know that's such a petty thing to like be upset about with a book, but it drove me up a wall. So this got 3 out of 5 stars. It didn't hit the mark for me completely, but I know so many people who have loved this book. So if you're single, if you're a Christian, and you love Mandy's other books, check this out. Oh, that was the other thing. I knew there was something else. This book kind of assumes that you've read her other books and that you are aware of what her relationship with Mr. E was. It doesn't really give you any background. In like the first chapter, it talks about how she came out of an abusive, painful relationship 7 years ago, and this is where she's now, and it talks about him coming back into her life. But like, there's no mention of why it was painful or how she worked through that. There was none of that. It just really assumed that you had read the other books and that you already knew the backstory, because she just said it was an abusive relationship, and then he comes back and she's welcoming him with open arms, and I'm like, wait a second, you just told me that he was abusive and now you're okay with that even though you've supposedly healed and moved on and like grown in your walk with Christ? Like, I'm missing something. So I think you need to have read her other books first. I don't know, but that part just totally lost me because I had no clue what was happening. Then I read The Gigantic Beard That Was Evil by Stephen Collins. This is a really lovely graphic novel. It's all in black and white, and it's about a man who lives in this perfect town, this perfect island where nothing bad happens. Everybody looks the same, acts the same. Everything is perfectly ordered until one day he starts to grow a beard, and it grows out of control and it starts affecting the whole population. And it was so good, and it was such a great commentary on like not following the crowd and being from other and being from outside. And I totally loved this. This belongs to my brother, but I think I'm gonna have to buy my own copy because it was just so beautiful and so subtle and so I loved it. I absolutely wholeheartedly recommend it. 5 out of 5 stars. I don't want to say too much, but it's just beautiful. Check it out because it was wonderful. And the final book that I read for the month of August was The Hidden Oracle by Rick Riordan. This is the first in the Trials of Apollo series. I've misplaced the dust jacket at the moment, but I loved this book. First off, I loved getting back into the world of Percy Jackson and the Greek heroes because I just love that world so much. And so we're right back in it. It picks up pretty much like a month or two after The Blood of Olympus. It's very close. It's not a lot of time at all. And we get to see Camp Half-Blood again. We get to see our friends, but this time we're seeing it from the eyes of a previous god. Apollo has been cast out from godship and is now a teenage boy named Lester Papadopoulos, and he is trying to survive in the streets of New York. He makes his way to Camp Half-Blood, and he's paired with this insane girl, and they're trying to figure out why all the prophecies have stopped. It's just marvelous. I really enjoyed it. I believe I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I love Rick Riordan's books so much. I'm ready for the second one now. It's almost October. Cannot wait. Absolutely recommend this if you love the Percy Jackson series. So thank you so much for watching this. I hope you've enjoyed this crazy big wrap-up video. Let me know down below if you've read any of these books or what books that you really enjoyed in the month of August. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you soon. Bye.